react to it. We behaved exactly the way that Obama wanted us to, and we've alienated the YouTube community. We've alienated a lot of people with our reactions to it, and that doesn't feel good. It's not great to fall for a troll, and we totally did. Fishy, please.
Well, and let's look at some of the other things that we predicted this. I just want to go on record here on the Refinery. We predicted this, that the president was going to do some things that would attempt to make the Congress under conservative leadership look bad, and that was going to be the bulk of what they were going to do. We nailed that. I just want kudos to us because we did know that was coming. So you have the YouTube business where the president's out there drawing people's attention to the content that the people made, not the content of the interview, where he could get some softball questions that, even though some of them were harsher than what the media would have wanted, or would have asked themselves. The focus was on, oh, look at those people and the ridiculous antics and how ridiculous and how unserious they are. Okay, that's trolling. That's what you were looking at instead of looking at the content or the possibilities. Now, then there's ANWR. The president is making noises about drilling in ANWR again. Has anybody remember the last time we talked about ANWR? Why is it coming up now? Because you're being trolled and because the Republicans are in charge of Congress now. And the other thing, the State of the Union, the free community college business. Okay, 2 years of free community college. Trolling. Does anybody think that's going to pass? No? Okay. So recognize that everything that the White House is going to throw, everything this administration is going to bring up, is going to be not to achieve a goal on their side, but to force a reaction out of Republicans.
And they're so good at it, and they've done it, and they've continued to do it, and we continually fall into this trap. And what's worse is that we self-troll because of our reactions. We self-marginalize every single time that we fall for one of these things, and we just don't know how to react. It's like people have never dealt with trolls before. They don't know anything about this. They don't recognize this as what it is. They don't recognize that he's trying to get a rile up out of us. He's trying to get us to react poorly to everything that he does. I mean, that's basically the last 2 years of his presidency is going to be more of this, because it's a bait. He's just trying to bait us into doing stuff that makes us look bad. And
why is that important? Because setting up the next candidate who will not have Obama's worship numbers and his voter numbers right automatically behind him. It's setting up whoever's going to run for the Democrats in 2016. And you can talk about whatever you want about 2014 elections. 2016 is a whole new game. I'd like to be a person who has enough impulse control that I don't go for every bit of bait.
We just, all we got to do is stay the course. Because this is showing the desperation on their side. My goodness, they've resorted to trolling. Let's keep in mind, they just got clobbered for a reason. And it's only going to get worse. This picking apart Obamacare stuff is going to bleed them. I know we've been talking about it before, but I got to bring it up again. They are going to get bled on this thing, issue by piece by piece by piece, on Obamacare, and a lot of the little things that we're going to bring up. We've got 1 to 2 years to bring up all kinds of freedom, liberty-oriented items and make them look bad. No wonder they're trying to provoke us to freaking out. I personally didn't care at all that they did the YouTube interviews. My only problem was, obviously, number one, Netanyahu. He didn't meet with him, but also they were so one-sided. My question is, why don't you do YouTubes with a little more balance?
I mean, but we already covered why. If you're talking about why aren't there more conservative YouTubers involved in the interview process? Which ones? Who are you going to get? Are they going to get us? The thing that Obama has done in 2012, I know that they did an interview which was not famous YouTubers, and that's the thing. That's the distinction that's being made here, or that we must make here, is that there's a difference between just getting random person off of the street and having a hangout interview with the president, which is what they have done before in the past, and doing what happened with the Obama or YouTube interviews Obama, which is taking established YouTube personalities and giving access to those YouTube personalities, their audience base, to give questions to these people who are in effect representatives of their audiences, to go and address Obama. So we don't have the kind of YouTubers out there, or maybe we do. They weren't picked for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know what went into the process besides with Glozell. I think Glozell was pretty much an attempt to get a rise out of the conservatives. But the questions that were asked, I mean, I read something today that said that Google actually talked to some of the YouTubers to try and get them to ask harder questions. So, I think that there were certainly some very difficult questions that were asked, particularly about Boko Haram and about Cuba. But as Fishy said, a lot of us on the right have been content to make fun of Glozell and the way that Obama has devalued the presidency, which, I mean, what a shock. I mean, that's basically been his presidency. We haven't even paid attention to what was said in the interviews. We haven't even watched the interviews. It's absolutely maddening how many people I've talked with who have just outright condemned the interviews, period, flat out, because of Glozell swimming in a bathtub with Fruit Loops, eating cereal out of a bathtub, without even listening to the interviews.
I actually thought the Cuba question was great from Glozell. But quick question for you: do you think the conservative candidates, especially when we get down to the last 3 or 4 on the right for the presidency in 2016, would really benefit from actually following and doing this kind of thing? Because I know that they would do it in a more dignified way, but right. I think that it would also touch into a real crowd. And one last point, and then because I'm really asking the question, sorry to make such a comment, but conservatism is so divided right now, and each one of these YouTubers really hits a different constituency. Wouldn't it really send a message to have a diverse group of conservative YouTubers, like even a couple of the superstars like you've mentioned earlier, to be questioned and interact with these candidates?
I want to answer that, if I may, but I also want to bring up another point on trolling before I answer your question, Andy. I'm reminded of something, a story that my best friend told me. God, has it been that long? It's been 10, 15 years. He was telling me about a gal that he knew, and he told her that he could make her swear, as in cuss, in front of the pastor. And she said, no, you can't. And then he told her how he could do it. And when she realized he was correct, she looked at him, and he said, do you know why I can do that? And she said, no. He said, because you gave me the power to do it. So when we get trolled by the president, it isn't because he's good at it. It's because we all gave him the power to do so. And when we go nuts, we're giving him power over us.
Exactly. And we get trolled by the leftist media in the same way because we give them too much credence that they don't deserve.
So to answer your question, Andy, about with regards to getting presidential candidates to meet with YouTube to do the same YouTube stuff, I want to answer that is sure we could. My next question would be a series of questions. is the Republican Party savvy enough to do it? And then who do we have that's a conservative or conservative-esque YouTube star that has the same reach as the 3 YouTubers that were interviewed by the president? And I want to go to
all those questions and more are answered in the discussion that Fishy and I had. But real briefly here, I will say that we did talk about some possibilities here for how we could have this work on our side. And I think it's a mistake to say, to speak generally about the Republican Party. I think this is very largely individual-based. This is largely candidate-based. So if Marco Rubio or if Rand Paul or if Chris Christie or any of these people decided that this was a good idea, something smart for them to do, and extend that sort of hand out to that to the YouTube community, I think that they would be absolutely greeted with all kinds of interest to do an interview with, whether it's a conservative YouTuber like the Shaytards or Destin from Smarter Every Day, or even Philip DeFranco, who's not necessarily a super conservative, but there are other things that we can do, and I talked about this. Do a Draw My Life. That's something that I don't know how many people are familiar with, but it's something where you explain who you are. You show your entire life through a series of whiteboard drawings, and you narrate it. It was a huge thing. It's been a cultural phenomenon. People have done it, and they are really fascinating. It brings people in to who you are and what you do and where you come from and what you stand for. Stuff like that. There are so many ways that you could use YouTube, and not in the same way that you could trot out the president in front of 3 YouTubers and have them sort of fawn over him. At least in Hank Green's case, there are many ways that we can use YouTube. It's not specifically the way that the president did it. I think that it's just getting out there and doing it, and we've seen Arnold Schwarzenegger has done it with Epic Mealtime. Chris Christie has done it on his own. He has his celebrity friends that he was able to drag in and do some stuff. But that's an important thing to do. We need to have more of this kind of. We need to acknowledge that this is a real platform, that these are real people who pay attention to YouTube, and they can vote, and they are voting. And if we don't communicate with them, we're losing them. It seems absolutely ridiculous to make these the new 47%, that we just don't care.
Really
sorry, go ahead, Andy.
How many of our candidates could handle that setting well? Rand Paul could. Chris Christie would be spectacular on YouTube, I got to be honest. Rubio would be good is a great communicator in any venue. But most of our candidates, I think, would struggle in that venue. That's why.
Here's the thing: they're good at speeches. They're really good at speeches, and we see that so many of our conservative heroes in the hero go-round are praised for particular speeches that they give. That's fine. It is a skill you need to have, but that's going to separate you physically and mentally from people that you want to reach. YouTube is a much more personal, interactive medium if you let it be. So don't just put your speeches up there. Interact with people. Show that. Be real. That's what they can do and do better. And if they're not good at it, then that will show. And that will show in the wash, preferably this year rather than after they've been made the candidate next year, and then all of a sudden they have to scramble to do that. Now's the time to start.
Well, if we can master the format, I mean truly master it, we don't need the mainstream media any longer. They become irrelevant. Your reach becomes substantially further than anything that they have. And that's what puzzles me, is why we're not striving so hard to master all of this quote-unquote new media, because there's this wonderful opportunity that sits right in front of us, and we can take the old guard and literally just sweep it aside.
1.7 billion, that's with a B, billion views.
Please say it with a finger.